Welcome back to the broadcast. Now away from the jostling for positions in the National Assembly and the Senate, let's switch our attention to some of the big names that lost in this 2017 election. And before we get into the discussion, our Francis Ontoma did take a look at some of the names at the coastal region that lost out in the just concluded general election. Take a look.
From the onset, it was clear the Coast region was going to be a bruising battlefront for many of the elective seats. And the 8th of August has left many political giants in the region wounded. Former Kilifi North Member of Parliament and Jubilee appointment Gideon Maitha Mungaro, Senator Hassan Omar Hassan, outgoing Taita Taveta Governor John Murutu, Kwale's Chirau Ali Makwere, and Issa Timami of Lamu are just some of the big shots from the region yet to recover from the wounds of that election.
Campaign strategy, maybe it was not as effective, maybe not enough funds to campaign and sell your ideas. Maybe one was in the wrong team, in the wrong place.
Political analyst Maimuna Mwidau says dealing with a sour aftermath can be a hard test, even for a seasoned politician.
It's not a good feeling. You feel lost. You need actually family to be around you at this moment in time.
Likoni's Mwalim Masood Mwahima is another man dealing with a heartache. Confident was Mwahima that he campaigned without a poster in Likoni. Vocal woman representative Mishi Mboko's game, however, outsmarted his plans.
Hii ndio system yangu. Lakini na magari tangazo nataka kura. Sina hii.
Inango's Samuel Gonzirai, he wasn't spared the axe either. Not even the passionate prayers by the Kaya elders could save him from the blistering defeat by newcomer Benjamin Dalu Tayari. So what next for the big names? Some, like former Labour CS Kazungu Kambi, are not backing off that fast. He's moving to court to reject the poll outcome.
We have followed the law. We are going to follow the law. We are peaceful people. We don't want people to demonstrate, but people are asking, where are our votes? We voted for you. Where are our votes?
Reports say some are now angling for top government appointments as others contemplate retirement.
Siasa ni maradhi mabaya sana. Hata ukishindwa sema mimi kama mkulima. Ikiwa kumekuja viwavi, ukame, wasema mwaka huu sikupata lakini huo ujao nafikiri nitavuna sana. Kwa hivyo huwezi kuacha ule ukulima kwa sababu ukupata mwaka huu.
Other victims of the election include Tana River's Hussein Dado, Mombasa's Suleiman Shabal, Awiti Bolo, and Dan Mwazo of Taita Taveta. Just like other parts of the country, it has been a bag of mixed fortunes for politicians here in the Coast region. And while others are still contemplating picking up the pieces, well, for others, the August 8th election may well mean end of the road. Francis Ontoma, KTN News, Mombasa.
So Francis Ontoma has analyzed what's happening at the coast. Let's take a look at what's happening nationally. Of course, we have spoken about here on this channel about what will be happening with those NASA principles, and of course there is that presidential election petition. But away from that, some names that scream for you: Isaac Ruto, the outgoing governor for the county of Bomet, former chairman of the Council of Governors. There is Evans Kidero, for the outgoing governor for Nairobi, who has contested the gubernatorial results. There is Dr. Julius Malombe, outgoing governor for Kitui, who came third after David Musila and Charity Ngilu. John Ruto, the outgoing Taita Taveta governor. Hassan Omar, outgoing Mombasa senator. Martha Karua, who was gunning to become one of the first female governors, did lose out to Anne Waiguru in the county of Kirinyaga. In no particular order, Javas, what next for these ladies and gentlemen, these big guns who have lost out? What next for them, politically speaking?
Well, you see, the moment an individual loses political office, it comes and one remains with the echoes of pain and displeasure for a very long time. And we know very well that failure itself has got very few friends. These individuals, yes, they have expended lots of resources during the campaigns, and you had hope upon hope that you would get whatever you were gunning for. but that was not to be for those who did not clinch it. So when you look at it that way and you realize that some of them are still politically fertile and ambitious, then they are individuals that cannot be written off. Pick the case of, say, for example, outgoing senator from Mombasa, Senator Omar Hassan. He is an aggressive, very ambitious, and well-informed leader. And the future of the people of the coast still shines bright with individuals such as Honorable Hassan. So you'll realize that it may be important for such leaders then to keep themselves cultivated within the populace and be fully engaged on the political scene, albeit not stirring up the waters, so that the people get to know that as long as these individuals are on the scene, then their communities, the country has got a future in them. Then the other thing is that a number of times, individuals who say have not clinched the office they were gunning for, at times tend to keep on fighting with now the holder of the office. And now that keeps the politics of an area or a county or a constituency very volatile, especially starting midterm all the way to the end of the election. Some of them are individuals that the state may want to consider or government may want to consider for various engagement, whether it's appointment to parastatals or boards, etc., or even ambassadorial positions. And when parties want to invest in such individuals, they know very well that they are still very fine slings in the arrows of the nation's politics.
Mutinda, you're a Nairobi person. Evans Kidero was arguably the most powerful of the first batch of governors, being governor of the capital city county of Nairobi. He's disputing the election of Mike Mbuvi Sonko. Is this it for him?
No, the truth of the matter is that he lost, and most people from Nairobi know that he lost because, you see, Nairobi, we've had very many challenges in the past as a city, and we'd hoped that with the injection of the billions, which of course we get the biggest chunk, we would see some difference. And you remember there is a time that we had a town clerk called John Gaku. I like reminding people of this because by then we had no devolution funds, and yet with the little resources that we were collecting here, he managed to show leadership, and everyone was in agreement that there was a lot of improvement in Nairobi. So we expected a lot much more from our first governor, but it was probably the most disappointing story of the devolution era, and he paid for it, and I can assure you it wouldn't matter even if we were to go back to the ballot. And we've seen what the governor-elect has started doing even before he's sworn in, and Nairobians already feeling the difference, some fresh air, because he started with cleaning up, and so some of these things are what matters, because you cannot explain yourself out of a dirty Nairobi. You might be very good in communication, you might have all the strategies, but some very simple, basic things, if you don't do them, then it wouldn't really matter what resources or what other strategy you're going to apply. I think that was the case with him, and that is it for him. Probably he's still young, and one thing, he's got resources, which is what matters as political capital. So you can be sure that he'll be back, but not necessarily as Nairobi governor. He's going to be back in the political scenery because...
is he still politically fertile?
Yes, he is. I want to agree with him, and that's why I've given the other factors. And he still commands some respect among a certain voting bloc, which might not necessarily be the Nairobi bloc, but in certain areas of this country, he can contest for positions that are going to make him relevant going forward.
Let's talk about Isaac Ruto Hesbon, the outgoing governor for Bomet, one-time chairman of the Council of Governors. He was one of the principals of the National Super Alliance. He did lose his seat. I mean, what is his way forward now that he has lost to Joyce Laboso and did lose very handsomely, Laboso winning very handsomely? What next for him? There's this rumor that ODM will want to nominate him into parliament in the place of Wilson Sossion. I mean, is this even legal?
Well, it's not legal, and at this point, I guess we'll just treat it as a rumor. Maybe they're testing the waters by floating that kind of an idea. But then you look at, the ashes of one's ambition and you realize that they're not very easy to collect. So for some time, I think it's going to be reality check for Governor Isaac Ruto. It's not going to be easy for him. But I cannot say that it's done and dusted for him. He is a very vibrant politician. I think every other move that he has made, he has demonstrated some sort of conviction, and actually is the kind of leader that Kenyans should yearn for, leaders who take a direction and stick to the direction to the hilt. So from where I sit, my understanding of Isaac Ruto as a governor is that he's somebody who knew the direction that he was taking, and he knew that there were consequences. And one of the consequences was to collect the ashes of his ambition. And I want to believe that he set himself up knowing that if he loses, he can reinvent himself. And I think to most politicians, that is the only thing, that when you lose, you have the dilemma of remaining relevant at the national level and at the same time working your network, at the grassroots level. Right. And I want to believe that he has what it takes, first of all, to remain relevant at the national level, talk about devolution, because that is what he has championed. Right. And then at the grassroots level, just try and reinvent himself. He'll have all the time. While the governor will be grappling with the challenges of executive leadership, I think Governor Isaac Ruto has, an opportunity to now reach out to the people and articulate the ideas that probably the people rejected in this election.
The fact that Deputy President William Ruto seems to have, dealt. It was a war between the two Rutos, so to speak, and the Deputy President seems to have won. Many seem to think that is a knockout blow. Yeah,
I mean, from a casual point of view, you'd think that he lost. But from where I see it, I want to believe that Governor Isaac Ruto did not lose as such, but the Deputy President, William Ruto, actually won big time. And from the contest, you could actually see that for the Deputy President, it was a question of, this is a war I cannot lose. They, pumped in resources, and everything was about consolidating the Kalenjin nation and not letting anyone infiltrate into the Kalenjin nation. And actually, they managed to portray Governor Isaac Ruto as somebody who was taking a section of the Kalenjin nation away. And I don't know for how long they're going to sustain this.
All right. Mutinda, yes. Very quickly, Dr. Julius Malombe, one of the so-called technocrats who are governors from 2013. What next for him, from where you sit? Very quickly.
Dr. Malombe, you've correctly put it. He was more of a technocrat than a politician. And he was unable to strike that balance between the administrative part of being a governor and the political bit of it. And he seemed to over-rely on having the Wiper ticket, probably because it is actually what made him governor. Because prior to 2013, no one knew about Dr. Malombe. But because he had the right party, he won. And he seemed probably to think that being in the good books with the Wiper leadership and ensuring that he gets the ticket was all he needed. Unfortunately, he met quite experienced politicians who know their way around and who've been there long enough. That is the immediate former Senator for Kitui, David Musila, and the former CS, Charity Ngilu. And they undid that. And it was clear that actually in some of the joint rallies, it took the intervention of Kalonzo to support and even at times rebuke. Like, there's a time he openly said that Ngilu came just the other day.
It was a tough campaign for him.
Are you getting it? So
yes,
that really worked against, because you see, local politics, sometimes people don't want this thing of projects. And I think that also happened in Machakos, because at some point, the Muktua camp successfully, they even had very nice pictures of Kalonzo carrying Hewa Vinyandeti. So that project thing worked against the fact that he didn't balance the technocrat bit with the political bit, and the fact that he seemed to over-rely on the Wiper wave backfired badly on him.
Yes. Martha Karua, very quickly.
You see, a number of these great leaders who've lost their seats or who've not clinched that which they were looking for are political giants with clay feet. They did not make sure that they have got golden, strong feet, especially with grassroots networks, or at times they were outfoxed. Because to be a very good politician, you must merge various characteristics. You must be a lion, you must be a fox, and then you must be a squirrel. And then with a silver tongue, you easily slide through, political contests. So when you look at an individual, the Iron Lady, Martha Karua, the only man in Kibaki's former, cabinet, is a very good leader, distinguished. But remember how the politics played out in Kirinyaga. You remember even the symbolism, the minji that people are talking about. Mm-hmm. It's not content that made the people of Kirinyaga choose against Martha. Because when it comes to content, she's a very sober leader. When it comes to profile, she's got an impressive political profile. But you see, a politician needs to change with times. And that's why you find that the kind of ball game that now Governor-elect for Kirinyaga was playing was a bit slightly different and more polished, than what Honorable Martha was playing. And it's important that moving forward, maybe Martha may want to reinvent herself if she wants to, be very significant still on the political scene. Remember that she had revised her ambition. In 2013, she was gunning for the presidency. She didn't get it. Then 2017, she went for the gubernatorial position. She didn't get it.
She managed to do that once
more,
She did
not go for parliamentary position in 2022.
Right.
So she just needs to reinvent herself and see what kind of positioning in whether it's county or national politics that she wants.
All right. I want us to talk about one last thing as we wind up. And of course, we shall be keeping an eye on these so-called big losers of this election and see, of course, what happens next for them. The other thing that people will be looking out, and political pundits have been talking about this, and of course, some will say it's a bit too early to start talking about 2022 politics. But some pundits still say that this is Kenya and this is going to begin immediately. But what we want to take a look at is the potential power brokers according to those regions, the so-called regional kingpins. And are they going to change, gentlemen? Of course, we know we still have the NASA principles, Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi, and so on. But what about, people are talking about a kind of new power brokers or kingpins being formed. People have talked about the coastal region where the Mombasa governor, Hassan Ali Joho, is being touted as now the undisputed king of the coast, with the likes of Mungaro and Chirao Ali Mokore losing on this ballot. Alfred Mutua, who went against the Wiper party in Machakos and got with his Mandeleo Chap-Chap. People seem to think that he is the next kingpin of Ukambani. There is Mike Sonko, who is being looked at. And Mwangi Kiunjuri, people seem to think that there's nobody in central Kenya who is going to be the next. And then the likes of Mwangi Kiunjuri are in for that. Javas, what do you think about these so-called new kingpins?
See, I'll start by saying that it is known to all of us that great expectations make very frustrated men and women. And it's the kind of expectations that, say, somebody like the Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka had. Remember that Kalonzo Musyoka has been in the court for the past 5 years. And then you want to add him a bonus of other 5 years. That bonus will not do him justice. In fact, if anything, he will jump not just from the frying pan into the fire, but deeper into the ashes. Because now you get to have individuals who have been bolstered by their rejuvenated politics and ambitions. Look at somebody like, for example, Governor Mutua, who, in fact, even prophets in Ukambani had said that Governor Mutua's goose has been cooked by the emergence of Honorable Wavinya Ndeti. But then see, the individual has danced his way through the election, and now is here again, elected successfully. He is an individual to watch. When you look at Ukambani, for example, there are two critical leaders that you have to put, or to have, in our eyeballs. There is Governor Mutua, and then there is Governor Ngilu. Realize that Governor Ngilu has always been very ambitious. Her profile is very rich. First woman to contest the presidency during her time, remember, Masaya Ngilu and all that?
Yes.
And now she's here again. These individuals, because they were not in Kalonzo Musyoka's good books, they'll want to make sure that they bottleneck Kalonzo Musyoka's politics in future. When you look at somebody like Governor, the governor of Nairobi, Sonko, this is an individual who will want to step up onto the stage and demonstrate that his ambition does not end at the gubernatorial position that he now holds, but even beyond. Governor Joho is a shining star, and he'll want to negotiate his way. Remember that now he's serving his second and last term.
Right.
He'll want to negotiate his way into the national politics and maybe somebody to consider him, whether as a possible running mate or something like that, or if you want to get the coastal vote, then you have to call Governor Joe on the table.
Right.
And so he's going to be very important in the future politics.
Mutinda, what is your take on this?
I'll start with the Ukambani politics. And it's clear that Kalonzo is in trouble. And, you know, Machakos, even in 2013, voted in quite a liberal way. Other than the county positions, which they gave to Wiper, the three of them, governor, then was Mutua on a Wiper ticket, then Mudama, then there was Susan Musyoka on a Wiper ticket for women rep. The 8 constituency seats, only 3 went to Wiper. So it should not be so much a surprise that Mutua made it back. And actually, notably is that Wiper only got, at the county level this time, it only got the women rep. Because the person who Kalonzo gave the ticket after he got it from Modaba lost to someone from CCU called Kabaka, a lawyer. And that is the senator. So we have Chap Chap as the governor in Machakos. We have the senator, CCU. Then we have the 8, only 4 again are Wiper. Actually, Victor Munyaka is doing his third term on a Jubilee.
Let me throw this in the works.
Yeah.
Even as you say that,
yes,
among the Mutua Mandeleo Chap Chap has only 4 members of assembly, 4 MPs plus women rep. Wiper still has around 22. It's still
it's still the most dominant. Yes, it still has, but it does not have the majority.
Right.
It has the single biggest portion, so it will take the majority leadership of the houses in Cumberland. But it does not have the single. It does not have a majority by itself. It has to look for other parties. So even as they go to elect speakers, especially in Machakos, they'll have to work with some other parties to ensure that they clinch that. But now, going forward, we have Governor Mutua has been elected on a chap-chap and against the Wiper wave. So that means he's now established himself as a center of power in Machakos, independent of Kalonzo. And that is also true of Sonko. You know, Sonko now happens to be the governor of Nairobi and is the senior-most Kamba politician in Jubilee. And Jubilee is in government. So in terms of power and influence, the single Kamba person who's going to be very influential going forward. You see, the opposition...
Even though he cannot express himself in mother tongue.
Oh, no, it doesn't matter. I've told you severally that Kibaki never spoke in Kikuyu anywhere in public, and yet he was the president.
What do you think about the cost? The cost, what is the cost as well?
I want to say something
central.
about the cost.
Yes.
I think the assumption that Joe is going to be the king is not correct, because there are certain areas of cost that he does not have that kind of influence. Look at Kwale, for instance. Actually, Jubilee won that. And this, you know, in cost, there is the people you can call the people of Arabic descent, the Asanomans, the Johos. Then there are the indigenous. Mostly they are in Kwale, they are in Kilifi. Joe is going to have a lot of influence among, you know, those with Arab, Swahili, you know, inheritance. But heritage. But for the other coastal region like Tana River, for instance, Kilifi, Kwale, is really not going to be that much powerful. That is what I would say about him.
All right.
Yes.
Hesbon, what is your take on this as we wind up?
I want to be a little bit different in terms of my paradigm, because I'm looking at 2022, I mean, post 2017 as a very interesting dispensation, in the sense that we are actually saying bye to the politics of tribal kingpins, and foreseeing a situation where we'll have a very bright political dispensation where it will be a question of ideas. So whoever emerges, and it's interesting that there are many centers in different regions. You look at the Kamba Nation, it's no longer Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka. You look at Nyanza and Western region, you realize that, you know, with maybe the twilight career of the big pins in that region, there are people who are emerging. And I want to believe that as these people will be emerging, there'll be a consciousness that will emerge with them, and folks in Kenya will start following leaders who are articulating issues rather than leaders who stand for, you know, different tribal outfits. So to the extent that we are going to see an emergence of the like of Hassan Joe, in Nairobi you have Mike Sonko again, who is drawing from the Kamba Nation, we would want to imagine that we'll have a situation where people will start interrogating that these guys have clout, yes, but do they have what it takes? Can they articulate issues? And from where I see it, I'm seeing a coalition. You know, young leaders will coalesce around ideas. And I'm seeing a situation where you'll have the likes of the MP-elect for Nyeri Town, Tula Kilonzo Jr., Ken Okoth in Nairobi, come together, irrespective of the political parties that sponsored them to parliament, and articulate almost the same ideology. And I think that is what Kenyans are yearning for. And I want to believe that it is Kenyans who will push these people towards a common agenda.
All right. Yes,
yeah, but there is a place of devolution as well in this whole equation. You realize that to a great extent, beyond what has been termed as the PR of Governor Mutua, development record, thanks to devolution, will make certain individuals really rise. And on the Kenyan political scene, individuals who are going to perform very well, especially for 2 terms, having served as governor, they are going to rise immensely to gun for the presidency. When you look at Western, that area, the stars are not really shining. Look at, for example, somebody like Honorable Mudavadi. He's likely to be really remain in the cold, and he will find it very difficult then to battle out with individuals like, say, Governor Oparanya. After he serves his full term, they may not want to go into the cold, they may want to rise, etc. So the mark timers, the old politicians, may really find themselves really in trouble, because the younger, the vibrant, those who will have performed through devolution, they are going to have the ball really change on the political code.
All right.
Yeah, there's something I wanted to say. As we look at the losers, we also do need to look at realignments. One thing I can tell you is that, when you lose something, you do a lot of soul searching. And that is happening with a lot of these losers. And that means for them to remain relevant, then they have to do a lot of realignments. And as you know, the incumbent president is not going to be contested in 2022. So there is going to be a lot of movement in the political sceneries as people realign for a stab in the presidency come 2022. And you see, Martha Karua, like for instance, Javan has correctly put it, had some paradigm shift in our politics because of the dynamics of the local politics. I think it will be important for someone like Isaac Ruto to rethink about his position, going by the realignment and probably going back to the fold so that it does not disappear. Anyang' Nyong'o did it, Orengo did it, Martha Karua has done it, and it is important now that we wouldn't want to lose such a figure.
Have the
for
last
him
word.
to realign and get back home.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe if I may chip in on Martha Karua, I think the president and the deputy president made it clear that whoever was going to lose between Martha Karua and Minji, as they want to call her, was going to be accommodated in the government. I want to believe that they'll keep their words, because you look at the government as it is, they probably need a Martha Karua in that government. I mean, you don't want to let that kind of brain and political wit, just disappear into oblivion.
All right, thank you so much, gentlemen. We have talked about next generation of political leaders. You have talked about people collecting their political ashes and political giants with clay feet. Thank you, gentlemen, for a very informative session here with me on this session of Kivumbi2017. Our post-election analysis continues here on Kenya's premier 24-hour news channel. I shall leave it on the broadcast tonight for all of us here on Kivumbi2017. Thank you for watching. I'm Ben Kitilian. Good night from Nairobi.